Okay, let's unpack this. Imagine we're walking into a masterclass on financial resilience. In our modern, interconnected digital world, well, there are invisible threats constantly lurking in the shadows. We're talking about the immense responsibility of protecting trillions in assets and countless customer accounts. Traditional safeguards, well, absolutely vital, sometimes just aren't enough for the most extreme disruptions. Today, our textbook, if you will, is the Sheltered Harbor Operating Rules. It's a document that outlines how the financial sector protects critical data from catastrophic cyber attacks. Our mission for this deep dive is to guide you through every significant aspect, one topic at a time, just as it appears in the official rules. Think of us as your expert instructors, helping you distill the most important nuggets of knowledge and insight from this crucial blueprint for financial stability. You'll gain a shortcut to being well-informed on a topic that, frankly, underpins the stability of the U.S. financial markets.
Exactly. And this isn't just about, reading a document aloud. It's about understanding the why behind each rule, the implications for an entire industry, and the layers of protection built to safeguard financial stability. It makes you wonder, doesn't it? What kind of foresight and collaboration is truly required to create a framework designed for the most extreme, unforeseen events? We're talking about the financial equivalent of black swan events, those truly unexpected, high-impact disruptions. Sheltered Harbor isn't just reacting to known threats, it's an anticipatory move, designing a fail-safe for the unthinkable.
That's a perfect starting point. So let's dive into our first chapter, Section 1.0, the Sheltered Harbor Overview. The core idea here is really the imperative for resilience. And Sheltered Harbor isn't some government mandate, right? It's industry-driven.
That's right. An industry initiative. It was launched back in 2015, and it was born directly from, the increasing complexity and intense interconnectedness of our financial sector.
Right? Everything's linked.
Exactly, and that combined with the growing threat of operational disruptions.
Which can come from anywhere, yeah.
Malicious actors, internal change control issues going wrong, or even unforeseen events that nobody could predict.
And what's really striking is this explicit recognition of the industry's burden of responsibility.
Yes, that phrase really stands out. It's not just about protecting their own bottom line. It's about diligently planning for customer protection, ensuring swift recovery against such events, and ultimately maintaining overall industry stability. This collective responsibility is foundational to the entire initiative. It acknowledges that a major failure at one institution could have huge ripple effects across the entire system.
So how do they achieve this stability? The document outlines three core mechanisms, kind of the pillars of Sheltered Harbor. The first one is data vaulting. Now, this isn't just about backing up data in the usual sense.
No, not at all.
It involves strict standards for the protection, portability, and recovery of critical data sets.
Think of it like a digital time capsule, maybe.
Yeah.
Sealed off, completely air-gapped from your active systems.
So even if the main house burns down, meaning your primary systems are completely compromised.
You have this untouched, pristine blueprint hidden away, ready to be deployed. That's the idea.
Okay. Pillar number two.
The second mechanism, resiliency planning, is where Sheltered Harbor truly distinguishes itself, I think. Most firms have robust disaster recovery, DR, and business continuity, BC plans. We know that.
Standard practice.
Right. Those are for things like a localized data center fire, a power outage, maybe even a regional flood. They're about getting your own systems back up. But Sheltered Harbor's resiliency planning focuses on business and technical processes, incident response communications, and critical key decision arrangements that are specifically designed to be activated when those traditional disaster recovery and business continuity plans fail.
So it's the plan for when the plans fail.
Precisely. It's about ensuring the continuity of critical customer-facing business services in the most extreme system-wide scenarios, going beyond what any single firm could likely handle alone.
And finally, there's certification.
Yes, the third pillar. This acts as a crucial quality assurance mechanism.
So it's not just a handshake agreement.
Definitely not. It involves requisite controls, defined processes, independent audits by third parties, and management assertions. It's about verifying that firms are actually implementing these stringent standards, proving they can be trusted within this critical ecosystem.
And what about Sheltered Harbor itself, the organization?
Right. Its organizational role is quite specific. As a not-for-profit entity, it coordinates the development of these very standards we're talking about. It promotes their adoption across the entire industry, actively supports participants in their implementation efforts, and then critically ensures adherence through that robust certification process and those independent audits we just mentioned.
So it's the coordinator, the standard setter, and the enforcer in a way.
In a collaborative way, yes. That coordination is key to a unified front, ensuring consistency and effectiveness across the sector.
The scope and impact are truly impressive. It currently supports all financial institutions, and its participant base already holds nearly 3/4 of all U.S. deposit accounts and retail brokerage assets.
Wow, that's huge.
That's a massive footprint, underscoring its systemic importance. This positions Sheltered Harbor as a highly significant step in the financial sector's ongoing business continuity and operational resilience efforts. Its specifications support the protection of isolated critical data of any type, and its guides provide best practices for cyber resilience preparations. So for our listeners, what truly sets Sheltered Harbor apart from a standard disaster recovery plan that a bank might already have in place?
I think the key differentiating factor is its focus on extreme, even existential threats. Scenarios where traditional plans are simply overwhelmed or rendered ineffective. A standard DR plan might cover a regional outage or a hardware failure, things firms plan for. But Sheltered Harbor is designed for widespread data destruction, potentially from a sophisticated, coordinated cyber attack that renders internal systems compromised beyond conventional firm-specific recovery.
Like a worst-case scenario plan.
Exactly. Think of it this way. Your traditional DR plan is like your home's fire alarm and sprinklers. Useful, necessary. Sheltered Harbor is like having a fully rebuilt, identically furnished second home across town, ready to move into if the first one is truly uninhabitable.
That's a great analogy.
It's a collective defense mechanism for when no single firm can go it alone.
That makes it incredibly clear. Now let's turn to Section 1.1, Sheltered Harbor Objectives, Complementary, not replacement. This section really emphasizes that the standards are specifically designed to enable a firm to prepare for extreme operational outages or data destruction events that render those traditional DR and BC plans ineffective.
Yes, and this complementary nature is absolutely vital. It's not trying to replace your existing plans.
It builds on them.
Exactly. It means Sheltered Harbor isn't a standalone solution, but an advanced, almost ultimate layer of protection. Think of it as the final failsafe for your most critical data, designed for scenarios where even the best-laid plans might buckle under unprecedented pressure. It's about having a pre-planned, industry-wide fallback position defined by collective expertise, ready for when a firm's individual resources might be overwhelmed or compromised. The initiative explicitly relies on industry experts from across the sector to define these standards, ensuring all participants conform to them.
So everyone's on the same page.
Right. So firms can revert to uncompromised data and operationalize it to promote sector stability. This shared expertise ensures the solutions are practical and effective in a real-world crisis.
Understood. Next, we have Section 1.2, Sheltered Harbor Specifications documents, the blueprints. These documents sound like the real technical core. They're the culmination of intensive work by multiple industry working groups.
That's right. Their job was to define the precise standards that all Sheltered Harbor participants would conform to in order to protect their critical information and supporting data sets.
And there are two key documents mentioned.
Indeed. First, the data protected specifications. These describe how participants implement the standards for securely storing and recovering critical account data, along with adherence requirements.
So focus on core customer info.
Exactly. Then there's the data vaulting process specifications. These detail how participants implement the standards for securely storing and recovering self-defined critical data.
So not just account data.
Correct. This distinction is important. It shows the framework's flexibility beyond just regulated customer accounts. It extends its rigorous protection to other vital institution-specific data, maybe internal financial records or intellectual property, things like that.
So these are essentially the instruction manuals for how to actually implement the Sheltered Harbor solutions. Why is it significant that these documents are proprietary and constantly updated?
Well, the fact that these documents are exclusive to participants underscores their value and the incredible collaborative effort involved in creating them.
You have to be in the club to see the plans.
Pretty much. They're not publicly available, reinforcing their sensitive and proprietary nature. And they're living documents, constantly refined. Sheltered Harbor maintains and updates these standards through ongoing oversight and continuous adaptation to industry developments.
Which is crucial given how fast threats change.
Absolutely critical. This continuous adaptation ensures the framework doesn't become obsolete the moment a new threat emerges. It evolves with the threat landscape, maintaining its efficacy. Without this adaptability, any such system would quickly lose its value.
Okay, moving on. Section 1.3 dives into the governance structure, industry-led and broadly represented. It clarifies that Sheltered Harbor is set up as a not-for-profit LLC, structured as a subsidiary of the Financial Services Information Sharing and Analysis Center, or FS-ISAC, and is governed by an independent board of directors, primarily made up of founding member firms.
This governance structure is paramount. It ensures that Sheltered Harbor is truly an industry-led initiative. The board's composition reflects broad representation from across the U.S. financial sector, banks of all sizes, brokerages, clearinghouses, core service providers, national industry trade associations.
So it's built by the industry for the industry.
Exactly. It's built by the very institutions it seeks to protect, which fosters immense trust and ensures the solutions are practical, effective, and directly applicable to real-world challenges. It's a collective defense mechanism designed from the ground up by the practitioners themselves, not some top-down mandate imposed by an external body.
And funded by them too, right?
Yes, its funding comes directly from fees paid by participating financial institutions, organizations, and alliance partners, further reinforcing its industry-led and self-sustaining nature.
Now we get to section 1.4, terminology and definitions, speaking the same language. This section seems pretty straightforward, like a glossary. But for an initiative of this magnitude, why is such a precise delineation of terms so crucial?
That's a great question, because while it might seem basic in a crisis, ambiguity is a killer, absolute killer. Imagine Firm A thinks it owns the recovery rights to a critical data set, but Firm B believes it does. Chaos.
Nightmare scenario.
Right. This section preempts those legal and operational quagmires. The real takeaway is that by defining ownership, responsibilities, and even types of information for every byte of shared data up front, they eliminate points of failure that could delay recovery when seconds count. It's about no surprises when the system is under stress.
Okay, so let's break down some key terms. The primary contact.
Right. This is the central point of contact for all Sheltered Harbor communications notices, invoices, everything. This person represents the participant firm, attests to compliance with the operating rules, and is responsible for ensuring strict confidentiality of Sheltered Harbor information. Crucially, the primary contact is also responsible for all access coordinators.
Making sure they're current, have the need for credentials.
Exactly, and possess the appropriate authority. This centralized accountability ensures there's always a clear chain of command and responsibility within each participating organization for all Sheltered Harbor-related activities.
Right. And those access coordinators are the specific employees, agents, and contractors identified by the primary contact as authorized to have Sheltered Harbor credentials. Then we have three distinct types of proprietary information. Member proprietary information.
That refers to any information voluntarily provided by the participant to Sheltered Harbor. Could be data they submit or information about their own systems.
Got it. And Sheltered Harbor proprietary information.
That's any information provided by Sheltered Harbor to participants, including defined intellectual property. This is what you gain exclusive access to as a member. The blueprints, the specifications, the playbooks, the good stuff.
And operator proprietary information.
That encompasses all specifications, computer programs, upgrades, processes, know-how, and other intellectual property embedded within Sheltered Harbor itself, excluding what's defined as Sheltered Harbor's own. It's kind of the underlying tech that makes the whole system run.
And where do you access all this? The Sheltered Harbor content portal or just the portal?
That's the one, an internet site providing exclusive access to private information for authenticated participants.
So these precise definitions really form the linguistic bedrock for a complex and sensitive system.
Precisely. It ensures that everyone involved, from the board members to the technical teams, is speaking the exact same language, which is absolutely vital when coordinating a sector-wide response to a catastrophic event.
Let's move on to Section 2.0, Participant Eligibility and Enrollment. Now that we understand the foundational design and language of Sheltered Harbor, how does an organization actually become a part of this vital network? This covers who gets in and the process of joining.
Okay. Section 2.1, Sheltered Harbor Participant Eligibility, outlines the specific criteria. There are three broad categories of participants: First, firm participants. This is a really wide group.
Like banks and securities firms.
Yes. Banking and securities firms with FDIC or SIPC insured accounts, that's the Federal Deposit Insurance Corporation, and the Securities Investor Protection Corporation. The federal government's backstops ensuring your deposits and brokerage accounts are protected even if a bank or brokerage fails. It also includes credit unions with NCUSIF insured accounts, the National Credit Union Share Insurance Fund. But beyond those, it covers asset managers, transfer agents, retirement plan record keepers, insurers, custodians, and loan or payment processors.
A lot of players.
Yeah. And importantly, it also includes any other organization hosting private financial information. This broad scope emphasizes comprehensive industry coverage, making it inclusive of various entities within the financial ecosystem that handle sensitive data.
Then you have industry service participants.
Right. Those are the service providers who maintain financial records on behalf of those firm participants. Think of the companies that manage core banking systems or brokerage platforms for multiple institutions.
And finally, association participants.
Yes, banking or securities industry associations themselves, representing the collective interests of their members.
But it's not just automatic if you fit a category, is it? The board has discretion.
Correct. While the criteria are broad, the Board of Shelter Harbor maintains discretion. They can set additional criteria. And critically, they can deny membership if it's determined that participation could lead to a violation of law, create liability for Sheltered Harbor or FS-ISAC, or pose a franchise or reputational risk to either organization.
A protective measure.
Definitely. It ensures the integrity and security of the entire framework, safeguarding it from entities that might compromise its mission.
Beyond the type of firm, there are other important requirements outlined in 2.1b, like good standing with regulators.
Yes, participants must provide evidence of good standing with all appropriate regulatory bodies or trade groups recognized by Sheltered Harbor or FS-ISAC. They must also adhere to all applicable laws, including antitrust and privacy regulations, and maintain strict professional conduct.
And pay their dues, obviously.
Of course, remaining current with all financial obligations to Sheltered Harbor is also a must. For international applicants, their regulated status by their host country must be vetted and verified by Sheltered Harbor, adding another layer of scrutiny.
And there's an ongoing obligation, too.
Yes, crucially, participants are required to inform Sheltered Harbor within 10 business days if they cease to satisfy the eligibility criteria.
And failing to do that is serious.
Very. It constitutes a participation termination event, which we'll discuss next. Sheltered Harbor also conducts periodic eligibility reviews to ensure continuous compliance. This continuous monitoring is vital for maintaining the integrity of the participant base, ensuring that every member continues to meet the high standards required.
And what happens when the relationship ends? That's Section 2.1c, participant termination. Sheltered Harbor can terminate participation.
Yes, they can elect to terminate a participant's involvement upon the occurrence of any one of 5 specific scenarios, each considered a participation termination event.
What are those triggers?
They're clear-cut. First, the persistent failure to pay any participation dues within 30 days after receiving written notification. Money matters. Second, any liquidation, dissolution, or winding up of the participant's affairs, essentially, if the firm goes out of business. Third, a merger, combination, or transfer of the participant or a substantial part of their business to another entity that is not a Sheltered Harbor participant or doesn't meet the eligibility criteria.
So you can't just pass it on.
No. Fourth, the continuing failure to satisfy the eligibility criteria within 30 days after receiving written notification. And finally, if the Sheltered Harbor Board determines in good faith that the continued participation would reasonably be expected to result in a violation of applicable law by Sheltered Harbor, or would create liability or reputational risk for Sheltered Harbor or FS-ISAC.
A participant can also choose to terminate their own subscription. Right. With notice.
Yes. That requires 30 days advance written notice to Sheltered Harbor.
So this section really paints a clear picture of the club rules, not just who can join, but what it takes to stay in and what happens if you don't. From your perspective, why is such a stringent eligibility and termination process so absolutely necessary for an organization like this, which is essentially a collective defense mechanism?
Well, this is where the integrity of the entire Sheltered Harbor ecosystem is protected. It really is. The stringent eligibility criteria ensure that all participants are credible, committed, and uphold specific standards, thereby minimizing systemic risk.
No weak links allowed.
Exactly. If you have weak links in a collective defense, the whole chain is vulnerable. The specific termination clauses protect Sheltered Harbor itself from legal, financial, and reputational exposures that could compromise its mission for all other participants. It's about ensuring every player is pulling their weight and isn't a liability. It highlights the collective responsibility inherent in such a collaborative defense. You're not just signing up for yourself, but joining a pact that relies on everyone's adherence.
That makes perfect sense. So how does an interested organization actually get on board? That's covered in Section 2.2, Enrollment Process and Procedures, the onboarding journey.
The initial steps are pretty straightforward. Organizations interested in joining can find all relevant information, including these operating rules and the participation agreement, on the Sheltered Harbor public website, shelteredharbor.org. To enroll, participants complete and accept the participation agreement and commit to pay applicable dues when invoiced.
And identify key contacts.
Yes, they identify their primary contact and access coordinators. It's critical that all users agree to abide by both the participation agreement and the operating rules. Enrollment can be done via an online cart system or by downloading and returning the agreement.
Once that's done, signed agreements are submitted to membership at shelteredharbor.org or a physical address. But it's not an automatic approval after submission, right? There's a verification step.
Correct. The next step is rigorous verification. Sheltered Harbor uses trusted third-party sources to verify applicant eligibility based on the information provided in Addendum 1 of the participation agreement. The primary contact and access coordinator identification must also be completed during this stage.
So external validation.
Exactly. This third-party verification adds an important layer of credibility to the process. It's not a self-attestation model.
And then activation. What's the sequence here? It sounds like there are critical checkpoints to ensure only truly qualified firms become participants.
Absolutely. The multi-step enrollment process, particularly the third-party eligibility verification, underscores the seriousness of participation. The specific sequence is key. Only after Sheltered Harbor receives a signed agreement, completes the eligibility verification, and makes a determination that the applicant should be granted participation, then an invoice for participation dues will be sent.
Invoice comes after verification.
Yes. And here's the kicker. Participation is enabled and notification is sent only after payment of these dues.
So verification, then invoice, then payment, then access.
Precisely. It's not just a click and join process. This layered approach ensures that only genuinely committed and qualified entities are brought into the ecosystem, maintaining the overall security and integrity of the Sheltered Harbor network. It's a thoughtful, secure onboarding.
Let's talk about Section 2.3, participation dues, funding the collective defense. As we mentioned, Sheltered Harbor is a not-for-profit, industry-led effort. So what exactly do these dues provide to participants?
Good question. These dues provide participants with two key benefits. First, access to the full set of specifications and related materials on how to ensure secure storage and recovery of applicable data sets. These are those critical blueprints we discussed earlier, proprietary and exclusive. And second, the opportunity to receive Sheltered Harbor certifications once they satisfy the applicable eligibility criteria. That's essentially the stamp of approval for their implementation, signaling their readiness to the broader industry.
And the due structure itself is fascinating because it's not a flat fee. It's intelligently tiered. For firm participants, dues are based on the type and size of the institution. For banks and credit unions, it's total assets. For securities firms, client assets, and number of clearing clients. For asset managers, transfer agents, retirement plan record keepers, insurers, custodians, payment processors, loan originators, hedge funds, private equity, or other financial information hosts, it's based on assets under management, plan assets, or invested assets. What does this tiered fee structure tell us about the economics of maintaining such a critical resilience framework?
Well, this tiered structure, based on firm size and type, aims to ensure equitable contribution to a collective good. That's the idea. It reflects that larger institutions with greater assets or clients also present a larger systemic risk if they were to fail.
Right, bigger impact.
And thus, they benefit from and contribute more to the shared resilience. Think of it like a progressive tax for resilience. Those with more to lose and potentially more impact if they fail contribute proportionally to this collective insurance policy for the sector. The Board of Directors determines the dues for association participants and industry service participants in good faith, and they also reserve the right to adjust these metrics or criteria as they deem appropriate, ensuring flexibility as the industry evolves.
That makes perfect sense for shared defense. And how does the payment process work?
Sheltered Harbor notifies each participant of their dues and provides invoicing. Payment by cash or wire transfer is required within 30 days of receiving a participation dues notice.
And late fees apply.
Yes. If payment isn't received within 30 days, a late fee of 1.5% will be assessed monthly on the unpaid balance. There's also an initial or renewal administrative fee. It's a one-time charge applied at initial participation or upon renewal.
What's that for?
It's equal to half a month's fee, and its purpose is to facilitate co-terming the agreement to the first of a given month. It essentially just aligns billing cycles neatly with Sheltered Harbor and ISAC's accounting practices, a practical administrative step to streamline things for everyone.
Now that we've covered eligibility and enrollment, let's dive into Section 3.0, Enrollment, Portal Access, and Credential Management. This is where participants actually gain access to the system and its valuable proprietary information.
Okay, Section 3.1, Enrollment Activation. This explains that once an application is approved, the Sheltered Harbor coordinator contacts the primary contact to activate the account. Through the Sheltered Harbor Content Portal, the primary contact gains access to the exclusive documentation, like those specifications documents we discussed, and other relevant materials available only to participants.
So this bridges admin and operations.
Yes, exactly. That exclusive access to the Content Portal is a core benefit of participation, providing the necessary tools and insights for implementation.
What about technical requirements for accessing this portal? Section 3.2, User hardware and software requirements, seems refreshingly simple.
It is, and that simplicity is intentional. It states directly that there are no special hardware or software requirements to use the Sheltered Harbor Content Portal. Participants only need the capability to access the internet using commonly supported browsers.
So no big IT hurdles just to get the info.
Right. What's fascinating here is the low technical barrier to entry for accessing the information. This allows a wide range of participants, regardless of their internal IT sophistication, to leverage the shared knowledge and standards. The focus is on the data vaulting itself and the security of the critical information, not on creating complex access infrastructure. This broad accessibility is crucial for widespread adoption across the diverse financial sector.
Section 3.3, Portal Access Credentials, details how individuals get their login information. It emphasizes that access credentials to the Sheltered Harbor Content Portal are issued specifically to the members' access coordinators. And it explicitly states these credentials are not anonymous. They are allocated to individuals, tracked, and monitored for use. So this isn't just a generic login. It's personalized and tightly controlled. What does this tell us about the sensitivity of the information they're protecting?
It tells us that the information within the content portal is considered extremely sensitive and critical to financial stability, no question. Personalizing and tracking credentials creates an audit trail and directly ties user activity back to specific individuals. Accountability is a built-in security feature. This high level of granular control is essential when dealing with highly sensitive industry-wide data and operational blueprints. And remember, the primary contact bears the explicit responsibility for managing and maintaining internal control and the current status of these credentials within their organization. That underlines the accountability. Furthermore, processes are established for initially setting, resetting, reissuing, and invalidating these authenticators, either at the request of the primary contact or when suspicious access attempts are detected, as a dynamic layer of security.
Let's talk about Section 3.4, Credential Revocation Procedures. How do they handle credentials that need to be replaced or disabled, especially if there's suspicious activity?
Okay, the primary contact can request replacement credentials by emailing content@shelteredharbor.org. Simple enough. However, there's a crucial, almost blunt security measure in 3.4b. If a credential is rejected on 3 separate occasions.
3 strikes.
3 strikes, and it will be disabled without notice to the primary contact.
Wow, no warning.
None. The primary contact bears the responsibility of ensuring Sheltered Harbor has current contact information for each access coordinator. This disabled without notice rule is designed to stop potential breaches in their tracks, highlighting the extreme sensitivity of portal access. It puts a heavy emphasis on the primary contact's internal management of credentials and contact information. Basically, if you mess up the login 3 times, we assume it's serious and cut access immediately for protection.
That's a very clear, if strict, security policy. The next point, 3.5, unauthorized use or compromise of credentials, is equally clear. Any suspected compromise or unauthorized use of any credential must be immediately reported to content@shelteredharbor.org. The all caps here really drives home the message. Why is immediate reporting so paramount in this context?
Immediate reporting is absolutely crucial for rapid incident response, which limits potential damage to the sheltered harbor ecosystem and all its participants. In cybersecurity, time is of the essence. Every minute counts. Quick notification allows sheltered harbor to take swift action in validating the credential, identifying potential attack vectors, alerting others if needed.
It's foundational.
Absolutely. It's a foundational element of any robust cybersecurity framework, ensuring that threats are addressed collaboratively and swiftly to protect the integrity of the entire system. Without immediate reporting, a small compromise at one firm could escalate into a significant systemic event.
Section 3.6, Failed Access Credentials, covers technical glitches. If credentials become inoperative for non-security reasons, you contact content@shelteredharbor.org for instructions.
Right. This provides a clear pathway for technical issues, distinguishing between a security incident and a simple technical glitch. It shows a practical approach to maintaining consistent access for legitimate users. While security is paramount, they also provide a clear and efficient way for authorized users to regain access when technical issues arise, minimizing operational disruption.
And finally, Section 3.7, Terminating Relationship, brings us to the logical conclusion. Upon termination of the participation agreement for any reason, access credentials to the portal are terminated.
Yes, the logical conclusion. When the relationship ends, so does the privilege of access. This is standard practice for securing proprietary and sensitive information, ensuring that only active, compliant participants retain access to the vital information within the content portal. Protects the whole network.
Now we move into Section 4.0, Operations, which outlines how Sheltered Harbor functions on an ongoing basis to achieve its mission. Section 4.1 provides an overview.
Right. The core focus of the Sheltered Harbor Initiative is fivefold, according to this. First, improve the resilience of the U.S. financial system by preventing the loss of critical customer account information and supporting data sets. That's the primary goal, data protection. Second, establish and maintain commonly agreed data formats and procedures for securely storing and restoring critical financial account data of U.S. firm participants. This enables efficient restoration and use of info in a crisis.
Standardization is key there.
Absolutely. Allows different firms to speak the same data language during a crisis, which is huge.
And
Third, promote and certify the use of these common data formats and procedures for securely storing and restoring critical financial account information. It's not just about having the standards, but ensuring they're widely adopted and correctly implemented.
Fourth involves actually helping.
Yes. Fourth, when and if necessary, assist in facilitating the recovery of critical customer account data using the Sheltered Harbor procedures and playbooks, shows their active role in crisis response, providing hands-on support.
And the fifth point.
The fifth, equally important focus is to promote and certify the process for securely storing and restoring self-defined critical data sets.
So back to that flexibility again.
Exactly. It expands the utility of the framework beyond just customer accounts, allowing firms to apply the same rigorous protection to other data vital to their specific operations. Could be internal financial records, trading algorithms, maybe even IP. Participants gain access to regularly updated specifications documents via the Sheltered Harbor portal, detailing full implementation, and assistance is available via implementation at shelteredharbor.org.
And these documents aren't just given out. Participants get a license to use them, consistent with the agreement, which terminates if membership ends. Association participants usually don't get these, though. So for firms listening, what are the key operational activities that ensure you can actually implement these standards effectively?
Well, that dual focus on protecting critical customer account information and also allowing firms to apply these principles to self-defined critical data sets is a huge advantage. But it's not enough to just create the standards. The active support for implementation through detailed documentation and direct contact via email underscores their commitment to practical adoption.
They want it to actually work in practice.
Precisely. It shows they understand that real-world application is crucial for building sector-wide resilience, so they provide the guidance and tools needed to make it happen.
Section 4.2, Sheltered Harbor Operations, clarifies that while much of the actual work is done by participating organizations, Sheltered Harbor itself maintains a core operating capability. Sounds like the central nervous system.
Indeed. These core functions ensure that Sheltered Harbor isn't just a static set of rules, but a dynamic, evolving ecosystem. Without continuous standards development or adherence monitoring, the framework would quickly become outdated or ineffective against new threats.
It has to keep up.
It's a constant effort to maintain readiness, an ongoing investment in collective defense. Examples of these core functions include ongoing standards development, membership support and communications, certification management, industry and regulatory coordination, and adherence monitoring and reporting. These elements are the central nervous system, ensuring the framework stays robust and relevant.
And that leads us directly to Section 4.3, Sheltered Harbor Audit Verification and Certification Framework, the gold standard. This is all about proving you've done the work.
Yes. 4.3a states that all participants, except association participants, must implement the required controls and standards over their production, storage, and recovery processes. This is known as the adherence framework. Upon completing both data vaulting and the adherence framework requirements, participants become eligible for Sheltered Harbor certifications. The details are in those specifications documents.
And there are strict rules about using Sheltered Harbor designations, right? You can't just slap Sheltered Harbor Certified on your website without earning it.
Absolutely not. 4.3b is a critical detail for maintaining the integrity of the whole system. Participants are not eligible to use Sheltered Harbor designations like vaulted, certified, or the old ready, set, go to describe their implementation status until they successfully complete the required criteria and receive positive confirmation from Sheltered Harbor.
Paying dues isn't enough.
No, neither executing the participation agreement nor paying dues is sufficient alone. Sheltered Harbor retains sole discretion over who can use and continue to use these designations. This protects the integrity of the certification process, ensuring that any firm using these designations has truly met the stringent requirements, which in turn builds trust across the financial ecosystem.
So how are these certifications actually verified? That brings us to 4.3c, Qualified Assessors and Audit Types. Seems like they don't just take your word for it.
They certainly don't. Participants seeking certification must engage a Sheltered Harbor qualified assessor for formal independent audits. The type of audit varies by participant. Institutions, like banks and broker-dealers, must undergo an examination of management's assertion of controls from the Sheltered Harbor Adherence Framework. For service providers, a SOC2 Plus examination is required. The ++R represents the Sheltered Harbor Adherence Framework.
And what's the crucial distinction there between, say, a SOC1 and a SOC2 Plus audit? Why is the specific type of audit so important for a framework like Sheltered Harbor?
This is a vital point. A SOC1 examination is insufficient because it focuses specifically on assessing financial reporting controls, basically. Are your financial statements accurate?
Okay, different focus.
Completely. In contrast, a SOC2 Plus focuses on the important trust services criteria, which include security, availability, processing integrity, confidentiality, and privacy, along with the Sheltered Harbor controls. This directly aligns with Sheltered Harbor's core mission of data protection and operational resilience.
So it proves the right things.
Exactly. It ensures the certifications aren't just self-declarations, but externally validated assurances of high security and operational resilience. This rigorous, independently verified certification process builds tremendous trust across the entire financial ecosystem.
Moving on to Section 5.0, Traffic Light Protocol, TLP, the language of information sharing. This is a brilliant universal system, isn't it? Like global traffic rules for sensitive information.
It truly is. 5.0a establishes the core principle. All information submitted, processed, stored, archived, or disposed of must be classified and handled in accordance with its classification. This is fundamental for secure and effective information exchange, especially in a crisis when rapid yet controlled sharing of threat intelligence is paramount. It ensures everyone receiving information instantly understands its sensitivity and how broadly they can share it.
And 5.0b defines each TRP classification and its sharing rules. Let's start with RAD. Sounds pretty restrictive.
TLP-RAD is used when the information's audience must be tightly controlled because its misuse could gravely impact privacy, reputation, or operations. The target audience must be specified. The sharing rules are extremely strict. Recipients may not share TLP or RAD information with any parties outside of the specific exchange, meeting, or conversation where it was originally disclosed.
Eyes only, basically.
Essentially, yes. This is for highly sensitive, need-to-know only information, like specific, immediate threat intelligence that could be exploited if leaked.
Next is AMBER.
TLP AMBER is used when information requires support to be effectively acted upon, but carries risks to privacy, reputation, or operations if shared outside of the organizations directly involved. The sharing rules for AMBER recipients may only share it with staff in their own organization who need to know, or with service providers contractually obligated to protect confidentiality, specifically to mitigate risks.
So, limited internal sharing for action.
Right. Sharing must be as widely as necessary to act on the information, but strictly within those confines.
Then we have green.
TLP Green is for information useful for the awareness of all participating organizations, as well as with peers within the broader community. Recipients may share TLP Green information with peers, trusted government, and critical infrastructure partner organizations, and service providers with a contractual relationship and need to know.
But not just anywhere.
Correct. This information cannot be shared via publicly accessible channels. It's broadly shareable within trusted networks, but not for the open internet.
And finally, white.
TLP White is used when information carries minimal or no foreseeable risk of misuse, and it aligns with rules for public release. TLP White information may be distributed without restriction, subject to copyright controls. Basically, public-facing info.
An important detail is in 5.0c. If no marking is specified, information is defaulted to Sheltered Harbor Confidential Information, TLP, AMBER. That's a crucial failsafe.
Absolutely. This default minimizes the risk of sensitive information being accidentally overshared, especially in the heat of a crisis. Assume it's sensitive unless told otherwise. And 5.0d emphasizes that information classified as green, yellow, amber, or red must be disclosed, transported, stored, transmitted, and disposed of in a safe and secure manner.
So proper handling throughout its life.
Yes, using controls appropriate to the classification level encryption, shredding, securely erasing, or degaussing media. It reinforces that it's not just who you share it with, but how you secure it throughout its life cycle. TLP provides that immediate actionable guidance preventing chaos.
Let's touch on Section 6.0, Help Desk Policy and Procedures.
Yeah.
Simple but crucial detail. Participants can contact Sheltered Harbor via email for help desk activities at membership@shelteredharbor.org. What does the inclusion of a clear help desk policy tell us about their commitment?
It indicates a strong commitment to operational support. Even the best frameworks need human intervention and guidance. Having a clear, single point of contact for support is essential for ongoing operations, troubleshooting, and ensuring participants can effectively implement and maintain adherence. It's about ensuring smooth, ongoing adoption and troubleshooting, which is key to maintaining system readiness, especially for something this complex.
Now we move into Section 7.0, Antitrust Competition Provisions. This is a tricky area for any industry-wide collaboration, especially in a competitive sector like finance.
Absolutely. Section 7.1, Policy, Leveling the Playing Field, lays out the clear mandate. Sheltered Harbor, FS ISAC, their boards, members, and participants must comply with all laws governing antitrust and anti-competitive practices. Prohibited conduct includes familiar territory like price fixing, group boycotts, or market allocations. This is fundamental to ensuring fair competition while fostering collaboration on critical infrastructure protection. It's a tightrope walk.
And to assure compliance, 7.1b outlines specific measures. First, participants are prohibited from discussing any company-specific, competitively sensitive information. No talk about terms, sales, pricing, future plans.
Correct. Not about their own firms, other firms, or even vendors they engage with. Keeps it focused on resilience, not competitive positioning.
Second, portals or forums are not for vendor negotiations regarding participants.
Right. Keeps the focus squarely on resilience, not commercial dealings or backroom agreements.
Third, no recommendations for or against coordinated boycotts or adoption of any specific company product service by SHFS, ISAC leadership or committees. Neutrality.
Very important. Fourth, each participant individually determines the effect of any exchanged information on its own purchasing and related decisions. Reinforces independent business decisions, prevents collusion.
Fifth, breach of these guidelines means review by the boards, potentially termination and forfeiture of fees. Strong deterrent.
Definitely. And finally, sixth, minutes are maintained for board committee and association meetings, providing a clear record and ensuring transparency and accountability. These are critical legal safeguards. The way Sheltered Harbor balances the need for crucial collaboration in cybersecurity with antitrust obligations is through these strict prohibitions on sensitive competitive data, combined with allowing factual vendor discussions. It's a careful, necessary balance.
So how do they allow for useful information sharing without crossing that line?
It's all about strict guidelines and focusing on facts. As laid out in 7.2, Vendor Discussion Policy, factual and professional, sharing positive or negative views concerning products, services, or vendors is permitted.
Okay, so you can share experiences.
Yes, but such sharing must be professional and courteous, focusing strictly on providing factual information. This allows participants to share real-world experiences with tools and services that enhance resilience without veering into price fixing or market manipulation. It enables effective peer review and knowledge transfer, but with very clear boundaries.
Now we delve into Section 8.0, Code of Conduct for Officers and Directors. This details the ethical framework for leadership.
Yes. Section 8.1, Code of Conduct Guiding Ethical Behavior, establishes that a code of conduct applies to Sheltered Harbor directors and officers. Its purpose is clear: guidance for recognizing and dealing with ethical issues, mechanisms for reporting unethical conduct, and fostering a culture of honesty and accountability. The code is vital for establishing trust and integrity at the highest levels. For an entity guarding critical national financial infrastructure, ethical leadership is absolutely paramount.
What are the foundational principles they are expected to uphold?
That's covered in 8.2, Obligations under the Code of Conduct. First, stewardship. Directors and officers are responsible for the stewardship of Sheltered Harbor, ensuring its critical capabilities. More profoundly, they have fiduciary duties, care, obedience, loyalty. They must act in good faith to promote Sheltered Harbor's best interests, including undivided loyalty.
Undivided loyalty, even if they come from competing firms.
Yes. This means their loyalty to Sheltered Harbor's mission must prioritize above their other affiliations. They are obligated to act honestly, in good faith, and always in the best interests of Sheltered Harbor, furthering its mission above those of other companies or organizations. It's crucial given their backgrounds.
And what else does that entail?
They must follow board guidelines for governance, refrain from speaking individually on behalf of the board unless authorized, and avoid actual or apparent conflicts of interest. On confidentiality, Section 8.2c states they must treat board or committee discussions, including opinions, as confidential until publicly disclosed by Sheltered Harbor.
Protecting sensitive discussions.
Yes, this extends to trade secrets, proprietary know-how, and financial information, vital for open deliberation about potentially sensitive information or emerging threats.
How does Sheltered Harbor ensure these high ethical standards are actually enforced? That's an 8.3 Code of Conduct compliance.
These mechanisms are essential for accountability and trust. Section 8.3a requires immediate notification to the chairman of the board of any legal process requiring disclosure of information received by a director in their role. And 8.3b states that suspected violations of the code must be promptly communicated to the chairman. These will be investigated and appropriate action taken. It ensures the code isn't just ideals, but a practical framework for governance with real consequences, vital for credibility.
Now we turn to Section 9.0, confidentiality. This is paramount for an initiative built on information sharing among competitors. Without trust, the whole system crumbles.
It's the bedrock. Section 9.1 confidentiality requirement establishes that directors, officers, staff, and members may access or receive trade secrets and other confidential information from Sheltered Harbor, FSISS, members, or partners. This info can be disclosed at meetings, committees, working groups, and all such information obtained is considered confidential and proprietary to the disclosing party.
And echoing a point we heard earlier, any information shared in portals and forums is defaulted as confidential, TLP Amber, unless specified otherwise.
Correct. Reinforces the protective stance. Furthermore, staff and contractors must execute a confidentiality agreement. Participants, including directors and officers, are bound by the participation agreement. This creates a robust web of legal obligations to protect shared sensitive data, ensuring participants feel secure sharing vital intelligence. A critical point in 9.1f addresses legal disclosure. If parties holding confidential information are legally ordered to disclose it,
Like a subpoena.
yes, they must use reasonable efforts to give Sheltered Harbor advance notice. This allows Sheltered Harbor and impacted parties to seek a protective order or other relief to prohibit or limit disclosure if the law allows.
The crucial balance.
Very. Ensures legal compliance while trying to protect participant data collaboratively.
So, what are the specific obligations for recipients of confidential information detailed in Section 9.2 Confidentiality Agreement? What's the most critical aspect here for fostering trust?
The most critical aspect is that it allows sensitive threat intelligence and best practices to be shared without fear of competitive disadvantage or misuse. This stringent confidentiality framework is the bedrock. Recipients are obligated to protect and preserve the confidential nature of all confidential information. They are strictly prohibited from disclosing, giving, selling, transferring, or making it available to any third party unless expressly permitted in writing by both Sheltered Harbor and the disclosing party. They also cannot use or make records or copies except as needed for duties required by law regs or needed to mitigate risk in their own organizations.
And they must limit dissemination internally to only those with a need to know, provided those people are also bound by confidentiality.
Yes, and recipients must return all confidential information and copies when no longer needed or upon request, as law and regulations permit. They also must notify Sheltered Harbor immediately of any loss or misplacement and comply with reasonable security procedures. These obligations are comprehensive, designed to ensure data integrity and security are maintained, vital for trust in this collaboration.
Finally, we arrive at Section 10.0, Rules, Modification, and Precedents. This covers how the operating rules themselves can change, which is important in a rapidly evolving threat landscape.
Right. Section 10.1, Modification of Rules Approvals, states that the operating rules, rate tables, and the participation agreement may be modified from time to time with the approval of the Sheltered Harbor Board of Directors. This mechanism for modification is crucial. It ensures Sheltered Harbor remains agile and responsive to dynamic cyber threats and financial sector developments. Without it, the framework would quickly become obsolete.
And how are participants notified of these changes? They need to know how the rules evolve.
Email notifications will be provided to current participants at that time, and all changes will be highlighted and/or summarized for applicability.
Transparency is key.
Absolutely. The transparency through notifications and summarized changes means participants are always aware of how the framework is evolving, which is vital for maintaining collective readiness. It's a continuous process of refinement.
Wow, okay. We've covered a tremendous amount of ground in this deep dive into the Sheltered Harbor operating rules. From its core mission to its intricate operational details, the rigorous requirements for participation, the ethical conduct. You now have a comprehensive understanding of how this vital initiative functions. We've seen how it goes beyond traditional disaster recovery, providing a unique collective layer of protection for critical financial data designed for the most extreme threats.
You've hopefully gained a deep appreciation for the complexity and, frankly, the foresight required to build such a robust, industry-driven framework. It's not just about technology, it's about governance, collaboration, and a shared commitment to stability in the face of extreme threats. It really makes you think about the kind of collective responsibility the financial sector embraces to protect not just individual firms, but the entire ecosystem. It's a powerful example of industry coming together.
So, as you reflect on this deep dive, here's something to consider. If an industry as competitive and complex as the financial sector can unite to build such a meticulous and resilient system like Sheltered Harbor, what other critical sectors, facing their own unique vulnerabilities, perhaps energy grids, healthcare data, maybe even supply chains, could benefit from adopting a similar, highly collaborative and deeply structured approach to their collective resilience? It's a question worth exploring.